The studio of Piers Morgan Uncensored was unusually quiet that evening. No chatter from the crew, no rustle of anticipation from a live audience, just stillness. Electric, heavy stillness. The kind that precedes a storm everyone knows is coming. Piers Morgan sat at his desk, posture sharp, papers perfectly aligned in front of him. The set lights glowed with clinical precision, reflecting off his watch as he glanced briefly at the cameras, then at the empty chair across from him, the one reserved for Prince Harry. The tension between the two men had been brewing for years, a slow fire fed by interviews, headlines, and barbed comments across oceans. Now, they were about to meet face to face. No palace walls, no royal protocol. Just two men, one stage, and millions watching. A producer signaled. Cameras rolled. The studio doors opened. Prince Harry walked in a dark navy suit, no tie, collar slightly open. The signature scruff that had become part of his post-royal identity. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between exhaustion and defiance. He took his seat without a word, folding his hands neatly on the table. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He just waited. Piers offered a polite half-smile. "Your Royal Highness," he began smoothly, "thank you for joining us tonight. It's been quite some time since you sat down for an interview that wasn't curated." Harry smirked faintly, not missing a beat. "Well, Piers, unlike you, I don't have to scream for relevance. I'm here because people want truth, not tabloid tantrums." A few crew members exchanged uneasy looks behind the cameras. Piers's expression barely flickered. "I see we're starting early tonight," he said lightly. "Let's talk about that truth, then. You've often said the media destroyed your peace, but you've also built a career speaking to them. How do you reconcile that contradiction?" Harry leaned back, voice slow and deliberate. "Maybe I realized that if I don't tell my story, people like you will tell it for me and twist it." Piers tapped his pen against the desk, considering. "Right. But isn't that convenient? You say you hate attention, yet you've given more interviews in the last 3 years than your entire family combined." Harry chuckled dryly. "I wouldn't expect you to understand balance, Piers. There's a difference between controlling your narrative and feeding the noise. You live off noise. I live off truth." The air thickened. Piers folded his arms, his voice low and measured. "Truth," he repeated. Interesting word, coming from someone accused of rewriting history and his own book. Harry's smile tightened. "I'm not rewriting anything. I'm correcting what you and your kind distorted." "You call it rewriting. I call it reclaiming." The control that usually defined Piers's interviews was slipping into a careful, volatile rhythm. Every answer from Harry was sharp enough to draw blood. "Let's talk about family," Piers said. "You've said you want reconciliation, but every move at the interviews, the memoir, the Netflix deals seems to burn bridges faster than you can build them. Do you think you've done anything to repair the damage?" Harry's eyebrow arched. "Repair?" he echoed. "I'm not the one who broke it. But sure, let's pretend it's all my fault. The ungrateful prince who ran away. That's the story you like, isn't it?" "I think," Piers replied evenly, "most people just want honesty. You talk about healing, but your actions say otherwise. Even tonight, you've walked in here with the same arrogance people accuse you of." Harry smirked, a faint taunt in his tone. "I don't need to be liked, Piers, and I don't need to explain myself to people who've made a living out of criticizing me." The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through glass. Piers studied him carefully. "You do realize, don't you," he said quietly, "that this defensiveness, the sarcasm, the contempt, it's exactly what turns people against you?" Harry's voice was cool. "I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to tell the truth. My truth. If people can't handle that, that's their issue." Piers shook his head slightly, half in disbelief. "Then let's get into your truth, shall we?" He glanced at his notes, then deliberately set them aside. "You've said the press hunted you, that the institutions failed to protect you, yet you pursued multi-million-dollar media deals, a podcast, a docuseries, A tell-all memoir. Help me understand the contradiction. Harry's lips twitched into a non-smile. It's only a contradiction if you can't tell the difference between exploitation and authorship. I'm not auditioning for your approval. I'm correcting the record. Is that what your book was? Piers asked softly. Correction or catharsis? Because to many, it felt like setting your family on fire publicly. Harry sat straighter, the tension visible in his jaw. You call it setting fires. I call it refusing to live in someone else's smoke. You say you want peace, Piers continued, but peace doesn't usually come from performing your pain for cameras. Harry tilted his head slightly. You're not a therapist, are you, Piers? No, Piers replied calmly. I'm a broadcaster who asks obvious questions you refuse to answer. Harry's laugh was low, humorless. Obvious to you isn't the same as intelligent. Then let's try intelligent, Piers said, leaning forward. You've argued that parts of the British press are racist and cruel. But when you paint with a roller instead of a brush, you implicate everyone. Is every critic a bigot? Or do you just dislike criticism? Harry's expression hardened. When you've lived what I've lived, you learn which patterns matter. I don't need to pass your exam. It's not an exam, Piers said quietly. It's accountability. Harry shifted forward. Accountability, he repeated. From you, the man who's made a career calling others hypocrites for ratings? That's rich. Piers didn't bite. You've brought up safety, privacy, dignity. But you also launched a global campaign about your private grievances. So are you seeking privacy or prime time? I'm seeking fairness, Harry said sharply. You keep acting like telling my story forfeits my humanity. It doesn't. Piers tilted his head. And yet, you've sold chapters of your life by the page. Harry shot back instantly. Better I sell them than let you steal them. A brief silence. Then Piers shifted gears. Let's talk about service. You've said you still serve the public, but you've monetized your image. Where does service end and branding begin? Service isn't defined by a crown or a building, Harry said. It's defined by impact. Then show us, Piers said. What impact are you most proud of, beyond awareness and applause? Harry bristled. I don't need to present a spreadsheet for you. Then it's just marketing, Piers replied evenly. Harry's voice lowered. You want receipts? My team sent your producers everything. Piers tapped the folder beside him. We received a one-page brief. No audited figures. Harry's jaw tightened. So now you're an accountant. I'm a journalist asking for receipts, Piers said. You invited this scrutiny when you made accountability your slogan. Harry exhaled, the muscle in his temple twitching. What's next, Piers? Drag my wife into it? You lot always do when you're losing ground. I'm not dragging anyone, Piers said calmly. But your partnership is central to your public life. It's fair to ask. Harry's laugh was sharp. Ah, there it is. The obsession. You can't resist saying her name, can you? Go on. Say it. Boost your ratings. I'm not provoking, Piers said. I'm pointing out that you often present your decisions as mutual righteousness, then bristle when asked to explain them. You mean marriage? Harry snapped. Something you clearly can't understand. Piers's eyes flickered, but his voice stayed mild. Marriage is exactly why people assess both of you. You've made yourselves a public partnership. Harry's tone turned icy. We didn't ask to be adopted by anyone. We asked to be left alone. Piers smiled faintly. You're saying leave us alone into a microphone that reaches tens of millions. Harry's patience thinned. What do you want, Piers? A confession? A surrender? You want me to beg forgiveness for not playing mascot anymore? I want honesty, Piers said steadily. Why should people believe you're fighting for principle when your every move is packaged for profit? Harry paused, voice quieter now. People should believe me because I've paid for the truth, in blood, in sleep, in family. Because I walked away from inheritance to be a person. And yet, Piers said softly, you didn't walk away from the spotlight. You carried it and tried to rent it out. Harry's mouth opened, then shut again. The cameras caught everything, the flicker in his eyes, the pulse in his jaw. I think we're done with your circular sermons, Harry said at last. Ask a real question or admit you're just performing resentment. Piers's tone cooled. Fine. Do you regret anything? Any word, any choice, any moment you take back for the sake of the people you say you love. Harry's expression didn't move. I regret underestimating how fragile the British media ego is. Beyond that, number. Not one thing? Piers pressed. Not one that wasn't already being sold. Harry replied, I just stopped letting others invoice my life. Piers nodded once. That will sound brave to some, breathtakingly self-serving to others. Harry smiled faintly. Lucky for me, others don't get a vote, and yet they're the public whose respect you ask for. I never asked for respect, Harry said. I asked for fairness. You've asked for fairness, Piers said evenly, while showing very little of it tonight. To your family, to the audience. Even to me, you've come armed with contempt and called it candor. Harry leaned forward. And you came armed with grudges and called it journalism. The red camera light blinked. A producer signaled the break. All right, Piers said. Let's take a short pause. Harry snorted. Need a moment to regroup? No, Piers replied. Still calm. We'll move to your work with veterans and charities next. You'll have every chance to be specific. Harry's voice dropped. Precision is wasted on people who prefer outrage. Then surprise us, Piers said simply. As the floor manager counted down to commercial, Harry leaned in, his voice low. You think you can pin me to your storyboard? You can't. Piers met his eyes. I don't need to. You're doing it yourself. The music swelled. The screen faded to black. When the lights came back, both men looked composed on the surface. But the storm hadn't passed. It had only shifted form. Welcome back, Piers said smoothly. We've covered the media, privacy, and your public image. Let's talk about accountability. Harry let out a dry laugh. Of course. Here we go. You say you want to inspire change, Piers said. But when people criticize contradictions in your actions, privacy versus publicity, you label it hate. Is it possible some criticism is fair? Harry crossed his legs, relaxed but defiant. You seem obsessed with this privacy argument, maybe because your career depends on violating it. You've built a life on gossip, not journalism. I ask questions, Piers said quietly. That's not gossip, that's accountability. And I think viewers would agree a man who published an autobiography revealing every family argument isn't exactly publicity shy. Harry smirked. Autobiography? Yes. Propaganda? Number. I told the truth. Something you should try sometime. Piers studied him, calm as ever. You've criticized your father, your brother, the monarchy itself. But you've never expressed regret. Do you ever think about the human cost? Human cost? Harry repeated, almost amused. Please, you talk like telling the truth is violence. I didn't cause damage. I exposed it. And yet, Piers said, you've hurt people you say you love. That's not revelation. That's collateral. Harry laughed humorously. You need drama to stay relevant. I'm not your villain. You've brought conflict yourself, Piers countered. I'm only asking you to explain your words. I don't need to explain anything, Harry snapped. You wouldn't understand what it's like being me. Piers leaned in, eyes steady. Pressure? You mean the kind that comes with privilege, wealth, and global sympathy? Millions handle worse without complaint. Harry's tone turned icy. So it's a competition of suffering now? You can't stand someone walking out of a gilded cage. Walking out is one thing, Piers said quietly, setting it on fire and blaming the builders, that's another. For a moment, Harry's smirk faltered. Do you ever wonder, Piers asked softly, if you've become what you claim to despise? You say you hate the media's circus, yet here you are, performing inside it. Harry leaned forward, his tone cutting. You think you're clever, but I'm not your villain. I'm the one who stopped pretending everything was fine. And yet, Piers said, voice firming, you act like you're above the rest of us. You call yourself a truth teller, but every question turns into an insult. I don't respect your questions, Harry said flatly. It landed hard. Piers blinked once, then smiled faintly. All right then, let's make it simple. You've called the monarchy outdated and oppressive, yet you still use your royal title. You still profit from it. Isn't that hypocrisy? Harry's voice dropped. I'm not responsible for how others label me. I've moved on. Moved on? Piers raised an eyebrow. You're here talking about it. Harry's patience cracked. You just don't get it. I'm here despite the title, not because of it. And yet, Piers said calmly, you've built a brand around escaping it. You've monetized rebellion. Harry slammed his hand lightly on the armrest. You have no idea what it's like. Every move dissected. Every headline weaponized. You can't understand. You're right, Piers said softly. I can't understand that kind of privilege. But I do understand responsibility. And that's something you keep dodging. Harry's glare was sharp. You don't get to define responsibility for me. Maybe not, Piers said, leaning back, voice low but steady. But tonight, the world gets to decide which of us sounds more accountable. For the first time, Harry said nothing. The red light glowed. The clock ticked. The silence was louder than anything either man had said. The interview continued. Questions, answers, counterpunches. But the verdict, for most watching, had already been written. By the time the cameras faded to black, both men had won something and lost something else. Harry had spoken his truth. Piers had held his ground. And the world, once again, couldn't look away.